I don't want to scare anyone, but I'm going to give it to you straight about Jason.
Golden Spiral Media presents the Friday the 13th rewatch.
Jason, Mother is talking to you.
Join Cory and Nathan each week as they slash their way through campgrounds, woods, Manhattan, hell, and space as they discuss another installment in the Friday the 13th franchise.
Hey, wasn't that the road up for Camp Crystal Lake back there?
Send us your feedback at goldenspiralmedia.com/feedback. Like our Facebook page at facebook.com/rewatch podcast. And follow us on Twitter at rewatchpod.
Legend has it that Jason came back to get even. Every now and then, the murders just start up.
Today we're discussing Friday the 13th, A New Beginning, starring John Shepard, Melanie Kinnaman, Richard Young, Dick Wieand, Carol Locatel, Miguel A. Nunez Jr., and Corey Feldman, with Tom Morga as quote-unquote Jason. We'll get into it. Directed by Danny Steinman. Welcome back to the Rewatch podcast. I'm Corey, and the forecast is cloudy in the mountains, sunny in the valleys, and snow flurries up your nose.
And I'm Nathan, and you're out of your fucking mind. You've been out in the sun too long. Jason Voorhees is dead. Is he?
Well, we're only at part 5, so I'm sure we're going to find out.
He was meant to be. I mean, the last film was the final chapter, but now we're at a new beginning, aren't we? And a new era of storytelling in the Jason arc, which we'll get into it, won't we?
Yes, exactly. So before we get too deep into it, of course, we want to remind everybody that we are part of the Golden Spiral Media Podcast Network, and you can send us your feedback at goldenspiralmedia.com/feedback, where you can type a message, or use the SpeakPipe widget to record your own voice, which we love to hear, or you can call 304-837-2278, and also head over to facebook.com/goldenspiralmedia, and follow on Twitter at GSM Podcasts.
Follow us.
Absolutely. All right, so shall we get into it and begin where we begin with the trailer?
I know, let's get into it.
If the memory of Jason still haunts you, you're not alone. Friday the 13th, Part 5, A New Beginning.
Severe trauma at age 12. Brutal self-defense, murder of a psychopathic killer. Boy, they've given him every therapy they can think of. It's a wonder his mind isn't fried with all the drugs they've given him.
The mindless, murderous fury that was buried with Jason has been reborn.
Pete!
And suddenly, terror has become child's play. Friday the 13th, Part 5, A New Beginning.
Alright, welcome back. Friday the 13th, A New Beginning. As we discussed, there was 4 previous films, the last one being the final chapter, which opened the previous year in 1984, and now we've hit 1985, and The Golden Goose was just too attractive. They couldn't let it go, so they had to start it again, and they did Friday the 13th, 5, A New Beginning, which opened on March 22, 1985. And once again, mate, this was a big hit. I mean, we're talking $2.2 million budget, and it went on to gross domestically $21.9 million. So once again, the producers, I would say, are reasonably happy with their returns on this. I mean, as per usual, mate, we're not talking international gross. We're just talking domestic gross here. And we're not talking about VHS sales or merchandise or anything like that, which there would have been a considerable amount. But this franchise, for whatever reason, Corey, continues to make money, doesn't it?
It certainly does. And for part 5, I mean, come on, that is huge. I think a lot of people think that this one is like the black sheep of the franchise as well, you know, being that, spoiler alert for the end, Jason isn't actually the killer in this one. So everyone's like, this is the crap one. This one did so crappy at the box office. No, it did exactly the same as the other ones. But, of course, there's going to be a bit of fan outcry about the fact that the main villain has, you know...
They kind of reinvented him a little bit. I mean, obviously we'll get more into it as the story kind of goes, but they definitely changed who the character was and what he was kind of becoming. Previously, he was always, you know, Pamela Voorhees' son who lived in the water, who somehow came back from the dead and then built a shack in the middle of nowhere and terrorized campers at Camp Crystal Lake. But this time he comes back and he's terrorizing a recurring character. Do you remember how I said last time in that I noticed that there was a recurring character? Well, that character's returned, hasn't he? And his name was Tommy Jarvis.
But we only get Corey Feldman for like 5 seconds.
Yeah, we do, but we get a new actor playing Tommy Jarvis. I'm not too sure what his name is off the top of my head.
It is John Shepherd.
John Shepherd. And I was actually almost tempted to say when you were reading out your cast list, or a cast of unknowns that we'll never hear from again. Because no one in this film really went on to bigger or better things, apart from Corey Feldman. But as I said, we'll kind of get into that. Now, something I do want to add, as we said, it opened on March 22, 1985. And once again, it was up against some pretty stiff competition. It actually opened in number 1 position on that weekend, grossing $8 million on 1,700 screens nationwide. Number 2 that week was Porky's Revenge Part 3. Mask was number 3, the Cher film and Eric Stoltz. The Last Dragon, which is a film I've never heard of. And then Baby Secret of the Lost Legend. Now, in the second week of its opening in March 29, it dropped down to number 3, taking $4 million. And a little film called Police Academy 2 opened that weekend, and that went on to gross $10 million. So it was up against some pretty stiff competition, yeah?
Porky's Revenge, I mean, that was starting to wear thin on the franchise, I think. Mask... Yeah, that's huge. That won Oscars, didn't it?
In the kind of box office list, there's other films like Amadeus was in its 28th week of opening. Beverly Hills Cop was out at the time. The Killing Fields, so some fairly kind of big films. But something I've always kind of noticed about these lists, Corey, is how many like original franchises there was. I mean, obviously there were sequels like, you know, Porky's and Friday the 13th and Police Academies and whatnot. But like, there's a lot of like original kind of content, isn't there, in these lists? Not so much today. I mean, you look at the box office list now and there's so many sequels and reimaginings and reshapings, and they just take brands and they just kind of remold them, don't they? Like back then it wasn't quite like that. They were coming up with their own kind of unique ideas.
Yeah, and I mean, even if you look at some of the horror films that it faced off against this year, they were trying to go in a new direction. You know, we've had Friday the 13th being pumped out every year. Halloween's sort of trying to keep up with it. But this year, the main horror films that it was released against were Cat's Eye, which was a Stephen King anthology film, and Life Force. So, I mean, those two just aren't very well remembered.
Being the horror expert that you are, have you seen both of those films?
I have. Yes.
You have? Okay,
yes, I only actually saw Cat's Eye for the first time maybe a couple of years ago, but it's still a pretty decent film, you know, as part of like an anthology of about 4 different stories.
Now, apparently 1 month prior to the film's release in the United States, the MPAA actually demanded that 16 scenes that featured sex or graphic violence actually be edited in order to merit an R rating instead of an X. Apparently the film ultimately required 9 trips to the MPAA before finally being granted an R rating. Now, to be truthful, Corey, I was a bit surprised by that. One thing that I did notice notice when I was watching this film is that it didn't feel quite as gory as the previous ones. Do you agree?
I do agree. It doesn't seem to have the same, say, flavour of the other ones, right?
Yeah, I mean, if I saw another shot of Jason like holding up like you know how he kind of just before he's about to kill someone, he'll like put his hand into the air with his kind of knife, and they do like a shot of the hand in the air. Like there was a lot of that in this film, wasn't there?
There was.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of got to look at the director of this one, Danny Steinman. He also did the screenplay for this. This guy, he was a porn director.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can understand why there was probably a bit more, maybe, say, gratuitous sex scenes.
Makes me kind of wonder how he actually got the gig to begin with, because like as much as it's kind of considered schlocky 80s kind of, you know, franchisey films, like let's be honest for a second, these films are not really considered critically received like amongst like the fanboy community. I mean, there are people out there that like these films and like Jason and like horror and whatnot, but I wouldn't say Friday the 13th #5 is considered like a horror classic, yeah? In saying that though, these films made money and they cost bugger all to make. So as much as this film has its issues, it's not that bad, I didn't think, but we'll obviously talk about it more as our discussion kind of goes on. But I'm surprised, like this was Danny Steinman's last film. He didn't make anything else after this. He didn't write anything else after this. He wasn't involved with any more kind of films. He's totally got out of the industry. So I'd be curious to kind of, I mean, he only died a couple of years ago too, in 2012 at age 70. So he must have had a fairly unpleasant experience, I would expect, working on this film. But I'm surprised by that because, as I said, the film, like, don't get me wrong, it's not great, but it's not awful either. Like, there's far worse films, yeah?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, for a guy who came out of doing porn, you know, his big success in that was a movie called High Rise, which was kind of like a real hardcore sex comedy that he wanted to try and rival against Deep Throat, which was a very big success throughout the 70s. And he kind of got into the horror field by working with Linda Blair from The Exorcist, who made a film in 84 called Savage Streets with her in it.
Yeah.
And that was kind of his pickup. And he actually got contracted to do 2 films.
Okay.
With Paramount, one of which was this sequel to Friday the 13th. And he was also going to do another sequel to Last House on the Left. But that never actually panned out, and like you said, this ended up being his last directorial effort.
Like I'm surprised he didn't even do like some cheesy schlocky thing in the late 80s or anything. He didn't. He literally made nothing after this film. Now, I mean, who knows? I mean, to be truthful, like I'm not an expert on Danny Steinman. I mean, it's very possible he probably went into commercials or something like that. Something like that could have occurred. Yeah, it's not impossible.
Yeah.
But as far as feature films in Hollywood or anywhere, he just totally got out of it.
And then we go on to Corey Feldman, who was actually meant to star in this film again. He was supposed to be the lead, but he was off doing Goonies at this point. He was off on, well, let's face it, bigger and better things than Friday the 13th Part 5.
It would have been a very different film as well, because this is the biggest jump in time that we've had in Friday the 13th. I mean, if I remember rightly, in Friday the 13th, 2, 3, and 4, like, it all happens in like 3 or 4 days or something like that.
Well, like it's another 5-year jump, and there was a 5-year jump between 1 and 2, so...
Oh, there was 2, yeah. But you're right, they jump a fair amount ahead, and he's an older kind of guy, isn't he?
Yes, and looks nothing like Corey Feldman.
No, nothing at all. And I know nothing about this John Shepherd guy. I don't even know kind of where they found him, yeah.
Me neither. They kind of just sort of whittled down the Corey Feldman because they wanted to at least bring him back for this extended opening, which of course turns out to just be a dream sequence, and apparently the whole thing was actually shot in Corey Feldman's backyard.
Yeah, he shows up right at the start of the film, and you kind of all of a sudden think, wow, is Corey Feldman kind of in this film? And he's not at all. Now, apparently among the cast, the only people that actually knew that Jason was actually the ambulance driver, which we kind of, said earlier, were actually the 2 leads, which is John Shepherd and Melanie Kinnaman, the stuntman playing Jason and the actor playing the driver. However, it actually, when it came time to film the big reveal, everyone knew it was horrible. In fact, they actually filmed fake Jason's death scene twice, but actually no one actually believed the audience would be able to just see the unmasked man and instantly remember him as the ambulance driver. Now, I actually find this pretty interesting because, like, even from myself who's never seen this film before, I remember that ambulance driver came around and he was acting a bit strangely, wasn't he? Like, do you recall?
Oh, yeah. But, I mean, I think just looking at him at the end there, the reveal of it doesn't immediately shout, oh, it's the ambulance driver guy.
Yeah, but they do a fair amount of exposition right at the end of the film, which we'll talk about, and you understand why it's the ambulance driver.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
I don't know if this is bullshit, but apparently Academy Award winning filmmaker Billy Wilder nearly came out of retirement to direct this film, but was actually refused final cut by Paramount. And then when Wilder was actually briefly attached, it was actually reported in the trades that Jack Lemmon was actually attached to the film in an undisclosed role. Now,
Wow.
I personally find that very difficult to believe. But, you know, as we said, even though we're kind of talking a bit of shit about these films, like, they were fairly successful films that made money. Like, maybe it's not impossible, but it's highly unlikely. Like, could you imagine this being a Billy Wilder film? I mean, I just can't, I can't see that, yeah?
I know, and I really think Friday the 13th Part 5 is beneath Jack Lemmon.
Yeah, very much so. Absolutely. Like, just totally not his kind of bag at all.
How about we get into the main discussion, eh?
Let's do it.
All right, so bringing up our timeline here, we, as we said in the trivia, we are jumping forward 5 years. So the last 3 films were all sequential, taking place one after the other. But this time we're jumping from 1984 all the way into 1989 when this is apparently taking place. And yet again, as I've been saying week by week, Jason is still not killing people at Camp Crystal Lake.
No,
he has
not,
never been killing people there this whole time. And yes, indeed, it's not even Jason this time. So yet again, even though he's so synonymous with Camp Crystal Lake, that's where his mother committed murders.
But they kind of allude to the fact that it's Jason. I mean, as we said, the film opens up with meeting our previous hero, Tommy Jarvis, and he's standing in this kind of cemetery, and it's pouring down with rain, and you see Jason Voorhees' grave. Now, for whatever reason, these local Hicks kind of show up, and they think it's a great idea to dig up the grave and actually see that it's Jason. And sure enough, as they get closer to the body, Jason's hand kind of comes out of nowhere and gets them all killed, yeah, or something like that. But it turns out to be some kind of dream sequence, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly right. It's Corey Feldman sitting in the rain, freaking out about Jason coming back to life as a total fake out, because he wakes up and he's actually en route to a halfway house.
It's this halfway house that they make pretty clear that, you know, he doesn't really have too many options, doesn't he? As he kind of gets to the halfway house, we meet the 2 like adults of the halfway house. Like, I can't even recall their names.
Pam and Matt.
And they're pretty nice people. They're just trying to do their best. There's a whole bunch of kids kind of living there. I mean, what would a Friday the 13th film be without, like, you know, random kind of children? And when I say children, they're not children. They're like teenagers, aren't they?
Yeah, it's a weird, eclectic group of kids, really, because I mean, they say it's a halfway house. It's called Pinehurst, and they get some sort of treatment while they're there. Pam and Matt as doctors or psychiatrists of some kind. But all the kids who are there, I don't know, like, they don't seem all that messed up, you know? I mean, there's Vic, who's obviously, like, angry all the time. And then there's just a chick who pop locks and dresses like Madonna, and another kid who stutters, and everybody else kind of seems normal.
And don't forget the compulsive eater, Joey.
Yeah, Joey. And, I mean, Tommy shows up here, and he is just saying nothing. This is our lead actor, our lead character, and he spends the majority of the film being stoic and not saying anything to anybody.
Yeah, it's something that I actually do want to kind of get out of the way early, is that as much as I appreciated certain things in this film, I didn't really like Shepard, who played Tommy in this. I thought he totally overplayed like the brooding kind of teenager. Like, wouldn't you say? Like there was just nothing to him that was like even slightly likable. Yeah.
No, exactly. You know, they try to do this thing at the beginning where he gets shown to his room and there's this kid living in the halfway house called Reggie, who isn't even a patient there. He lives there because his grandfather is like the cook or something. He has this encounter with Tommy where he scares him with a spider or something, and he kind of scares him back with one of his horror masks. And I guess that's trying to make you like him.
I actually forgot about that. The concept of the horror mask, they actually brought that from the previous film because Tommy was right into that, wasn't he?
And watching it this time, you know, with a bit more of a critical eye, he puts on this like alien mask, and I guess it's trying to maybe set up that that's the mask he's using underneath the hockey mask, because they're going to try and make us believe that it's Tommy. Tommy is the killer.
You know, we learn more about that as the film kind of goes on. But you're right, we're introduced to these teens in the halfway house, and we've got Pam and Matt, who I kind of think have their heart in the right place. They're trying to do their best by these kids. I mean, that they clearly kind of want better futures for these people, and I wouldn't necessarily say it's a great environment for these kids. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say that there's lots of like counseling kind of going on and actually trying to help them through their problem. It's like they're just throwing them into this house where they have to do their laundry and they can make breakfast and they do all kinds of things. They just have to, like, I think it's almost like preparing them for the outside world, but they're not necessarily dealing with any of their issues. And to be truthful, the fact that Tommy Jarvis is even there, like, if he's even half as fucked up as the way Jason Shepard is kind of playing Tommy in this film, he so shouldn't be in this halfway house, and he shouldn't be released back into society. He should be getting the appropriate help that he needs to sort through the issues that he has, because he clearly has issues. Isn't that a fair comment?
Yeah, I totally agree. He's instead thrown into this halfway house with these kids, and we've got a bit of a list here. So there's Robin. She's the redhead who I can't see has really any other issues other than maybe being a bit of a cock tease. And then there's Violet, who
is like a goth.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess that's what they were going for. An 80s goth.
That's the way exactly. That's the way I kind of viewed it. But when she had that dance sequence later in the film, she wasn't listening to goth music, but that's okay.
Jake, he stutters. Vic has a short temper, and Joey is always eating. There's also these other two, Eddie and Tina, who go off into the woods and screw at every turn.
The sheriff picks them up and he brings them back to the house and kind of reads the riot act to Matt and Pam and says, look, Matt, like, I think you really need to kind of keep an eye on these two. Apparently they were on their neighbour's house, who's this woman named Ethel and her son Junior. Now, oh my God, Corey, seriously, these two were just infuriating.
Laying it on thick.
Laying it on super thick. And there was just zero subtlety to any of their performances. And, I mean, don't get me wrong, man, I'm not expecting Academy Award material here, but it could have been designed a little bit better than what it was, yeah.
I know.
The son Junior was just like this motorcycle riding kind of slob that didn't do any washing, and he was like a mummy's boy, and the mama Ethel really had a big mouth on her, didn't she? Like a huge mouth. Yeah.
She was dropping an F-bomb in every sentence for no reason. And that's kind of our setup is, Tommy's in this place, all these kids are here, infuriating neighbor, and then we're going to try and set up the plot. And what they're going to do here is, I think that attempting to recreate part one with the murder mystery, right?
Yeah,
we didn't know that it was Pamela Voorhees in the first one. And we kind of complained that they didn't really give us the option to pick Pamela Voorhees as the killer because they didn't introduce her until she was driving on up to the cabins, right? This one, this guy, Roy, is just showing up here and there in the background, and people are talking to him, and the whole time you're going like, why are people talking to Roy?
Yeah, it's weird. It's just like you don't quite get like an idea of exactly kind of what happens, but just keep in mind, and I need to talk about the scene that happens before we meet Roy. Like, they're kind of in the backyard and they're mucking around. Now there's this guy named Vic who's like a strong guy, and he's an angry guy, and he's like chopping wood, and he's getting harassed by Joey. Now, you couldn't make the character of Joey up if you wanted to. Like, talking about Ethel and her son Junior laying it on thick, well, Joey lays it on extra thick. He's like this overweight kind of guy that clearly has some kind of mental disorder, and he's eating like a chocolate bar. And isn't he trying to like get into like he's trying to be friends with the girls and all that kind of stuff by offering them chocolate bars and offering them half chocolate bars, and they're doing washing and stuff like that. And like for some reason he tries to help them hang out the washing, and he picks up one of the clothes and he's got like chocolatey hands and stuff, and the girls kind of snap at him. And then he goes over to Vic and he's desperate to like help Vic. He's like, I really want to help you, man. And like he's even got like chocolate around his mouth. Did you notice that, man?
Yeah, he's a total slob. And of course, Vic just doesn't want a bar of it, you know? He's like, I'm just chopping wood here, leave me alone.
Go away, I don't want to know you, kind of thing.
And then just out of nowhere, he just snaps and just takes the axe and mows this guy down.
It's a bit shocking. And then I just kind of thought, where's Matt and Pam during all this, man? Like, seriously.
This guy has anger issues. They've got him in the backyard with an axe.
He's got anger issues. He's got him in the backyard with an axe. And there's this guy, Joey, who clearly has some kind of disorder somehow. Like, I'm not too sure exactly what's going on with him, but there is something wrong. And he annoys people. And if Vic gets set off so easily, you know, maybe they should be there. But you could maybe argue too that the fact that Tommy has kind of shown up and thrown like a problem in the fire, if you know what I mean, like amongst all these people, like he's brought this kind of, you know, Jason to where they are. Maybe that kind of set Vic off. Like, is that a worthy argument, you think?
Maybe.
Yeah, it's hard to say, isn't it?
It's a bit of a stretch, but
it is a bit of a stretch, isn't it?
So that's the setup, and yeah, Roy comes over and he seems quite disturbed about having to take this like mutilated corpse away. Just like, again, like they're referring to him by name and everything, and he's going to show up again in a little bit and people are going to talk to him, and you're like, this is weird.
But Duke, who's one of the other ambulance drivers, believes that the murder was a harmless prank. How did he come to that conclusion? Like, seriously.
I didn't mean to kill him. I didn't realize the axe was real.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's just crazy. Anyway.
And then to build up the body count, we then cut to these vaguely homosexual guys and their broken down car. Out on a road somewhere. One of them's like trying to fix the car and the other one's having a go at him. And the next thing you know, Jason shows up.
Oh, that's right. I kind of forgot about these two. They're laying it on thick with their accents, and they're being like kind of really macho and stuff, aren't they? They're trying to be anyway.
Well, I think it was that hat and the letters that sort of gave me this vague homosexual vibe.
Yeah, it kind of looked like something like they were heading to the Blue Oyster Bar or whatever it was.
Exactly.
In Police Academy, yeah.
Yeah, well, and then, you know, to sort of like go with that theme, he does get like a stiff implement shoved into his mouth.
Yeah.
Which is this road flare.
Which is pretty concerning, and it's not a very good way to die. But anyway, that's how Vinny and Pete go, which is really random that they were even killed. I mean, like, we've never met these two before, and suddenly we cut to like this 2 or 3 minute sequence with them, and next thing you know, Jason gets them. It's like they're purely there so Jason can kind of kill them, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. They're just the body count.
But the following night, Billy and his friend Lana are actually killed with an axe.
Yeah, so this is the scene at the diner, and this guy, he kind of makes reference to the fact that he works at the halfway house.
Yes.
Because he's just like, you know, the custodian of Pinehurst has cleaned out his last bedpan. I want to go and party with you, Lana.
Yeah, that's right.
And he's doing coke, and Lana's getting her tits out for no reason. Yeah, these two are going to get mowed down as well, with an axe.
I think I read somewhere in my trivia that when the script was being written for this film, one of the briefs they told the screenwriter was that somebody had to die every 8 minutes or something like that. So there was just like this relentless body count. And like just going through the list of deaths, in this film, 20 people died. I'm fairly certain it's the highest body count we've had to date, and I'm not too sure if the subsequent films hit that mark, but this one in particular, there's quite a lot of death, isn't there?
Yeah, there's a ton of kills in here, and you know, like I said, they're trying, I guess, to make us think that it's Hummy, because I think that's where they were trying to lead us with that stare that Corey Feldman gave at the end of the last film.
Yeah.
So, all these kills are happening, and yeah, it's Jason, but they're kind of trying to make us think it's Tommy, because did you notice the mask was a little bit different? The hockey mask?
Not really.
Well, I noticed because Jason's mask sort of had like a red mark in the middle of the eyes, whereas this one kind of had like blue marks under the eyes.
Okay.
Slightly different. So it's like maybe they're trying to get us to think that Tommy has picked up now where Jason left off. And maybe this killing at the beginning that Vic did has kind of sent him over the edge.
They never explained what happened to Tommy's sister in the last film. Like, they never explained what happened, because she survived too, didn't she?
Yeah, she did, yeah. They never even mention her in this film. So
I'm hoping she's living a peaceful existence somewhere. I hope she hasn't had her eyes gouged out by Jason, because in this film, I've noticed that he had a bit of a penchant for gouging out eyes.
This is true.
Let me ask you a question. Do you have any clips to play?
I do. So let's check out some clips from the first half of this film.
Let's do it.
All right, so I've got a clip of those rednecks from the dream sequence.
Yeah, cool.
Let's rip this sucker open. Gotta get a look at the main man.
Ooh, gotta get a look at the main man.
Nice.
I don't know why he was dreaming about Hicks digging up Jason, but whatever.
I don't know, but again, everything in this film is laying it on thick, from Ethel and Junior to the kids at the halfway house to the sex-crazed couple to everything, to the goth. Like, they're just laying it on big time thick, and they're really trying to lay it on the fact that Tommy is this really screwed up guy out of what happened to him when he was 12 years old. And I suppose when you think about it, like, he did hack Jason in the head with an axe and kill him fairly well, or so we thought.
Okay, so I got Reggie.
You scared of spiders? You scared of rubber spiders? You scared of rubber spiders on strings? Man, you are one scared cat.
You're one scared cat.
Do you know what, man? I actually quite liked Reggie in this film. I thought he was one of the better parts. Like, he certainly had like a bit of energy about him. Like, and if he was like a more major kind of character, like up front in the storyline, like, I think the film probably would have been slightly better.
All right, so we got Joey talking to Vic.
Yeah, nice.
Forget it, Vic. Just forget it. But I think you're really out of line.
Like, for some reason, they dialed back the language on that one.
Yeah, I don't know why. And then he got... That's the scene, like, right when he's chopping wood, yeah? And he goes crazy. Yeah, totally. I couldn't believe they kind of, like, put chocolate around his mouth. I just couldn't quite believe it. Anyway.
All right, so we got those two gay punks.
Get this done by the time I get back. I gotta take a crap. Crap my ass! Just do it, man. I mean it.
People going to take craps.
Isn't that the scene too where the guy gets killed by Jason? He's like under the hood or something like that, and the guy like gets back into the driver's seat and he's just like, "Turn it over, man, turn it over," and stuff like that. I'm gonna do it, man. Like, he has zero idea that he's been like killed by Jason.
Such a weird scene. And I don't know, was it people having to go and take a crap?
Yeah, I know. Just strange.
Two people have to go take a crap in this movie.
Yeah.
We'll get to the second one later.
Yeah, cool. Well, that kind of takes us up to where we're up to, yeah?
Well, no, I still got a few more clips. I got a whole bunch of clips of this one because there's a lot of people that say random stuff in this movie.
Did you get some Ethel and Junior?
I did. We'll play them a little later on.
All right. Okay, we'll save that for later. Nice.
Got some more Reggie?
Yeah, do it.
Go on and let everyone else know breakfast is ready.
Yo, breakfast! Come and get it!
I could have done that.
Why is this kid living with his grandfather at this weird place? Like, it's strange, yeah?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Oh, actually, I do have some Ethel. Here we go.
Oh, do it.
Clean all the shit out of the chicken coop and dump it behind the shed. You come back here when you got all the shit out, and then I'll fill your stomach.
That's right. They introduce this character that shows up to Mad Ethel's house and says, I'm really hungry. I'll do anything around the house. And she says to clean up the chicken shit in the chicken shed. And you kind of expect this guy, because they make a bit of a song and dance about him showing up. He shows up and he's like this intruder, and like it's like a 2 or 3 minute sequence that they spend like introducing this guy.
I know.
And then he gets killed, doesn't he?
It's so random.
It's
Just out of nowhere, this guy shows up.
Yeah, it's really weird, man. If only this film was less interested in just endlessly killing every character it introduces and actually telling like a fairly interesting story. Because I think there's a bit of a missed opportunity here. I don't mind the idea of Tommy being screwed up in the head and needing some help to deal with the incident that happened when he was 12. I think that's a fairly good premise for subsequent movies. You could build on that premise, and they kind of wasted it a little bit, yeah?
Yeah, I agree. Instead, they're going to continually talk to Roy, and I've got a clip of that, so
yeah, nice.
check this out.
What the hell's going on here? You talking to me, Sheriff? Huh? Oh, I thought you was talking to me. No, Roy, it's okay.
For no reason. Oh, you talking to me, Sheriff?
Oh,
no?
Apparently the other ambulance driver just thought it was a harmless prank. Just a harmless prank. Really?
This is so random.
Do you know what kills me too, about is that the investigation from the police would have been really bad. Like when Vic killed Joey, there was several people standing around watching. They knew exactly what happened.
Yeah, nobody gets taken to the police station or questioned about what happened.
There's no mystery, is there?
No, there's just Vic just hacked this guy to death. All right, take him away.
Yeah, I know.
All right, so yeah, that kind of takes us up. So yeah, the random couple gets killed at the diner, axed out.
Then the next day we get our sex crazy teens, Tina and Eddie, and they sneak off into the woods and they get naked and they do what they got to do. And out of nowhere, Jason shows up. I think it's after they do their deed as well. Eddie runs down to the water for some reason.
Yeah, he's just like, hey, whew, I got to get cleaned up.
Yeah, something like that. And Jason shows up and doesn't he gouge out Tina's eyes or something like that?
Yeah, he's got a bolt cutter type hedge clipper thing, and he gouges it into her eyes and then snips them closed, and you get to see a real gory close-up of the aftermath later.
Yeah, it's pretty nasty, truthfully. And then Eddie shows back up and he sees Tina, and before you know it, it's kind of too late for him.
His kill is very bizarre.
Yeah, is that the one on the tree?
Like a belt or something wraps around his eyes, and then he gets tightened, I guess, until his head cracks or something. I don't know. It's bizarre.
And this is where we get Ethel's farmhand who we just met. Apparently they give him a name. His name is Raymond.
Oh, there you go.
Killed while spying on the two kids having sex.
He was totally in on it too.
Yeah,
he comes across these two, if you pardon the pun there, doing it in the woods, and he's like, yeah. And then the next thing you know, he's just getting stabbed to death. It's just what keeps happening here. I mean, they didn't even attempt to make us think that maybe that random homeless guy was the killer. He was literally just introduced so he could be killed.
And then we have this really weird sequence where, for whatever reason, after all the trouble that's kind of happening in the halfway house, Matt decides that Pam, Tommy, and Reggie need to kind of get out of the house for a little while. So they go on a day trip or a night trip or whatever it is. They go to visit Reggie's big brother. And this is a really strange sequence. I quite like this sequence, but kind of for the wrong reasons. First of all, they go on this special trip to visit Reggie's big brother, who lives in a van somewhere, and he's meant to be Mr. Cool, isn't he? He's got all the cool jewelry and all the cool things in his van, and he's got a girl in the back of the van, and you can tell that Reggie really looks up to his big brother. But the thing that I kind of liked about it, and the reason why it worked for me, is the brother, I think his name was Demon, he really loves Reggie. You could tell that they were a family, yeah, and you could tell that they really liked each other, yeah?
Yeah, but the odd thing is that you could think, okay, they're saying that Demon, lives in this van with his girlfriend Anita, and then that maybe he's not financially stable enough. That's why he can't take care of Reggie. But really, was anybody wondering why Reggie lived with his grandfather at the halfway house? He's not a patient there or anything. He just lives there with his grandfather, but they introduce his brother as this, guy who's got no money and lives in a van, but he's still super cool and stuff. And he's like, why?
Do they give you any kind of indication as to what happened to Reggie's parents? I mean, they might have mentioned it, but I'm fairly certain they don't, yeah?
I'm pretty sure they don't.
It's a shame that he can't live with his brother, because his brother really likes him and probably would have taken care of him, I would expect. But you can kind of tell too that the brother lives this transient kind of existence and is probably a bit unreliable in many ways. I mean, probably wouldn't send him to school for one reason, you know what I mean? But you're right, Demon is like Mr. Cool, isn't he? And he's smoking, and he shows up and says, do you want to have something to eat? And for some weird reason, he's got like enchiladas there.
He's got enchiladas and tacos and pizza and egg rolls. Just all this food there.
In this van, it's weird.
Well, I guess they are kind of back there smoking pot, like Anita's got a joint going, and I guess they've got some munchies there, so
yeah, very much
sense.
so.
Well, and let's not forget at this point too, our main character, who has been saying nothing this whole time and really doing nothing except being stoic, Tommy, gets in a fight with Ethel's son, Junior.
Yes.
And he's just friggin' karate master out of nowhere, beats up this kid, and then runs away. So he is now out of the movie for pretty much the remainder until we get to the big climax.
If you had to choose who's more annoying, Ethel's son Junior or Joey, the guy that was kept talking about the chocolate bars. If you had to choose, I'd probably say Ethel's son Junior, because he's such a dick. And there's that scene earlier on in the film when he's at Ethel's and they're like eating like soup or something like that, and he's being like a real pig. Yeah, just a really terrible. Yeah,
an absolutely gross character. Just ugh. So he gets his butt kicked and he ends up back at the farm, and there's like a 5-minute sequence of him screaming about how he got his butt kicked while riding around on his bike up and down the yard. It just goes on and on and on while Ethel's screaming like, "You shithead, get in here and eat my stew." Ugh.
You're not wrong, man. She's got the mouth of a sailor, doesn't she?
The two of them have this coming, you know. But he gets his head chopped off, and then this meat cleaver comes in through the window and kills her. She falls face forward into her own stew. Ugh, I was glad to see these two gone.
So we have Ethel and Junior killed with a meat cleaver in fairly aggressive kind of circumstances, but we actually get Reggie's big brother and his girlfriend. After Reggie, Tommy, and Pam leave, Demon and Anita, I think that they're getting it on or something like that, and Demon says out of nowhere, "I've got to go to the loo, like something's not agreeing with me."
It's those damn enchiladas.
That's exactly right. And he runs to the toilet.
Like an outhouse.
And it was at that moment, Corey, that I really kind of went, are we going to get another toilet sequence? Because didn't we do this like 2 films ago? Like seriously? But yes, they did another sequence, and Demon's on the loo. He's doing what he's got to do, and the toilet kind of shakes, doesn't it? And it turns out to be Anita outside shaking it just to scare him. Yeah.
Yeah, and they have this weird back and forth where they sing to each other. She's shaking it, and he calls her a bitch. He's like, "Oh, don't make me come out there and smack you, bitch." And then they start singing to each other back and forward.
Yeah.
And then she goes quiet. It starts shaking again. And he's just like, "All right, that's it. You're going to get it, bitch." And I'm just like, what? What is with this dude?
I don't understand. It's a strange sequence, truthfully. But whilst they're doing this back and forth singing thing, she stops, and then he pokes his head out to actually have a look and see. And he sees that she's, her throat's been slit or something like that. And then Jason gets Demon in the toilet, and they're dead. So, as we said before, in the space of like 5-10 minutes, we've had like 4 or 5 kills.
I didn't mind the attack on Demon in the outhouse. That spear coming through and jabbing him in the legs and stuff before he finally gets it, and you're like, phew, yeah, that was actually an alright sequence.
Pam gets back to the halfway house with Reggie and Tommy, and for whatever reason she decides to leave Reggie at the halfway house to look for Tommy.
Yeah, well, she goes looking for Matt as well, because they all come running out and they're just like, "Matt's not here. We don't know where he is." Like, he's just left.
Have we mentioned at all that there's been a terrible storm happening whilst all this is happening? Like, what's the deal with Jason and the storms? Like, it's just these terrible, like, and it really felt like it wasn't real weather either. It was like movie weather, wasn't it? Like the rain was coming down really hard. Like, it wasn't just like slightly hard. It was like really hard,
Every single film, except I think number 3, where it was just really windy. All the other ones, it's just started chucking down with rain.
So we have this kind of sequence too after this happens where they basically introduce the rest of the characters from the halfway house, and it's this fairly 5-6 minute sequence where Jason essentially actually kills each of them sequentially and creates this kind of moment for Reggie to kind of walk in on and discover this like terrible thing. And he actually kills Jake with a cleaver, he kills Robin with a machete, and he also kills Violet with the same weapon. And it all happens very quickly and there's not much noise. No one screams when they're killed. It's ridiculous.
I know.
And they just die like immediately. Like there's no like long-winded like lying on the floor. Like they're dead straight away, aren't they?
It's quite ridiculous, really. I mean, Jake sort of like makes a pass at Robin.
And he's really like coy about it.
Yeah, she like chuckles in his face.
And next thing you know, she goes upstairs and she keeps saying stupid, you know, me, like, why did I do that?
She gets naked for no reason.
She gets her tits out for no reason and she goes to bed with the tits out. And you know what? My wife was watching this film with me at that moment, right? And she said to me, why is she going to bed without a top on? It's just strange.
And not only that, she gets in the top bunk, doesn't realize there's a corpse in the bed with her, and then she gets killed with a machete up from the bottom bunk. I mean, come on. As if you could crawl into bed and not realize there is another person in bed with you, living or dead.
It's just strange. So we get Jason killing these three people, Jake, Robin, and Violet.
Oh, that's where we get the pop lock. She's doing the pop lock scene.
And then Reggie awakens from his nap that he's decided to take because he can just have a nap randomly. And he discovers the dead bodies in Tommy's room before running back into Pam. Now, when Reggie walks into the room, they're all stacked up against each other, aren't they?
Yeah, in Tommy's room. Just to sort of strengthen that, oh, did Tommy do this? Maybe.
Did you ever really think seriously that Tommy was the killer in this film? Because I didn't,
No.
Never, not once. If that was the insinuation from the filmmakers that maybe Tommy was the killer, they didn't do a very good job with it, did they?
No, not at all. But, you know, Roy has really done his research. He knows Jason's MO. And he even goes down to the effort of throwing Reggie's grandpa's body through the window. It's a move that Jason just loved to do, throw corpses through windows.
Yeah, he loves doing that, doesn't he?
So Pam and Reggie are freaking out, and they run outside and get separated.
And this is where it basically turns into this really strange kind of chase sequence between Jason, because all of a sudden Jason's not really hiding in the shadows anymore, is he? Like, he's like a main character for the last 15-20 minutes of the film. Like, there's this like pursuit, isn't there?
Yeah, and you know, I think they give it away at this point too, because I think Reggie and Pam end up on the main road and they find the abandoned ambulance there with that, what was the other ambulance driver's name? Drake or something? Duke. And he was dead. So they kind of play their hand a bit much there, but we seem to just run straight back into part 3 and they end up at a barn. I don't know if they're still anywhere near Camp Crystal Lake or what, but this looks like the exact same barn from part 3.
I kind of get the impression they're like a fair distance away. They don't really give any insinuation that they're near Camp Crystal Lake. They don't even mention it, not once, yeah? Apparently this is one of the first films they actually called Jason Voorhees by name, yeah?
Well, that's what kind of made me think. I'm just like, are they near Crystal Lake? Because everybody seems to know Jason Voorhees. Like, the local sheriff is saying, like, oh, it's probably Jason Voorhees, and the mayor's there freaking out about it, saying, like, Jason's dead, they cremated him, like, whatever. So, I don't know. I don't know where they are. But yeah, they are back at a barn from part 3, and this is where the big showdown's going to take place.
Tommy shows up out of nowhere, much to Pam's and Reggie's happiness. Like, I think Reggie sees Tommy and just yells and says, help, Tommy, like, I can't believe you're there. Like, how good is this?
You're not the killer. Oh, big shock.
Yes, exactly. So Tommy comes shortly after and he actually believes Jason to be a hallucination that Tommy is actually having, until he's attacked by Pam and Reggie. And together they kind of create this ruse for Jason. And I think Jason's like approaching some door or something like that. And Pam bursts out of it with like a chainsaw or something like that. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. They kind of give everybody their dues here, right? Because Reggie sort of busts out in a tractor at one point. And then Pam has a bit of a showdown with a chainsaw that ends up stops working, and then they manage to like push him off the second story of the barn while Tommy's passed out. but he still manages to climb back up, and that's when Tommy gets his moment to push him down onto these, conveniently placed spikes.
Yeah. I know, and it's the only thing Tommy does for the whole film. Like he broods for 80 minutes of the film, doesn't he? Until he shows up right at the last second and then does this one thing and is all of a sudden the hero, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. And it's the big reveal that it's not Jason, but Roy was apparently Joey's dad.
The kid with the chocolate around his mouth that got killed by Vic early in the film was actually Roy's son. And we actually learn at the hospital, quite a bit of exposition right at the end. Actually, to be truthful, the last 5 or 6 minutes of this film is reasonably story heavy. Like, you want to be paying attention. At the hospital, the sheriff actually tells Pam that Joey was actually Roy's son, and after seeing him slaughtered, that he actually adopted Jason's identity to kill everyone at the house.
Yeah, but why? They arrested the guy who killed him. Like, why not just go and kill that guy?
Yeah, I'm not too sure why he kind of felt the need to adopt Jason's identity and slaughter everyone in there. Like, it didn't really make much sense. And
no.
It turns out that he was like an illegitimate son of Roy. Like, apparently Roy wasn't really around all that much either. But for whatever reason, he cared for his son. Like, don't they open his wallet and they pull out a picture of Joey or something like that? Is that right?
Yeah, like Joey, like, as he was when he died too, so not like a baby picture or something. This guy's been keeping up on his son that he has nothing to do with.
Yeah, nothing to do with, exactly. So we get Tommy is apparently he wakes up from a nightmare where he actually kills Pam in his room, and he actually awakens a hallucination of Jason, but he actually faces his fear, which actually makes Jason's hallucination disappear. And it's like this really weird sequence where Tommy's in bed and Jason kind of appears to him, like mask and all, but Tommy faces up to him and sort of says, no, you're not going to like win this battle right now, and just forces him to go away, like, which is a bit of a turning point for Tommy, because he, like, mentally speaking, it shows that he was able to kind of get past that a little bit, but he takes it to the next level. For some reason, he's got the hockey mask in like a top drawer next to his bed.
Just you took that with him after killing Roy, I guess.
Which really makes no sense to me.
I know. This whole ending doesn't... I know, it's weird. Like, there's a big smash. Pam walks in the room, sees that the window has been smashed in, thinking like Tommy's, I don't know, committed suicide or something. And the next thing, he's coming out from behind the door with the machete. Freeze frame, that's the end.
They're alluding to the fact that Tommy is going to be Jason in the next film.
Yeah, now he's really gone over the edge, and he will be the killer next time. So before we get to our ratings, let's check out some more clips, eh?
Cool.
All right, so I've got that very 80s dude doing coke.
Nice, do it.
It's so weird.
He's so creepy too, like he's...
We've also got Lana popping her tits out for no reason.
Oh yeah, that's right, yeah.
It's showtime!
Saying it to herself, by the way. Like, there's no one else in the room.
She also starts singing at one point too, where she's like, I don't know if he likes me, but I think he does.
Something like that.
It's so weird.
Like, she's going to put out that night, yeah.
All right, so I've got a few clips here of Reggie's brother, Demon.
Nice.
You want a taco? Egg roll? What about a slice of
No,
pizza?
thank you.
Cheese and sausage? What about you, brother? I know what you want. Want a beer?
Yeah, I'll take
Get out of here.
They had a really good back and forth, right?
I really do feel like there was one of the better sequences in the film, even though it was flawed and like there's a lot of question marks about the whole thing. I felt like their energy between each other was quite infectious, and yeah, it would have been nice to kind of spend a little bit more time with them, because they were actually real characters that you kind of got to know just a little bit, maybe not a huge amount, but just a little bit, certainly more than all of those characters at the halfway house that got killed.
Damon was like one silvery glove away from being Michael Jackson.
Oh,
right?
Totally. And all I could think of was Soul Glow from Coming to America. Gotta give me that soul glow.
I love it. And here's him talking about the enchiladas.
Nice.
Oh!
Hey, you okay?
Oh! It's them damn enchiladas!
And then them singing back and forth.
Ooh, baby. Hey, baby. Hey, baby.
Ooh, baby. Ooh, baby. Ooh, baby. Ooh, Ooh, baby, ooh, baby.
Hey, baby. Hey, baby.
Let's not forget, at this point, he's got like enchilada diarrhea going
No,
while they're doing this.
And he's sitting on a toilet with a crazy killer circling them. Like they're singing this weird song.
Oh, man.
Oh, that's crazy.
And then, last clip, I had to capture that music that Violet was doing her pop lock to.
Nice.
It's so 80s.
Yeah, do it.
Oh, so goth.
All I can think of is Crispin Glover doing a dance.
That's the themes of these movies these days. It's if people aren't taking craps, they're dancing weird.
Yeah, I know. It's really strange.
All right, man. So, ratings, recommend. What do you think?
I don't know if I can recommend this one. I mean, I just feel like it's a missed opportunity. I didn't mind where the story was going, as I said before. The concept of Tommy Jarvis being a, mentally disturbed, young man who's trying to kind of get over this terrible grievance that happened to him with Jason. I think there's a story there, and I didn't mind. Like, I liked all the stuff with Reggie and the older brother, and I don't know. I think a big problem with this film is the filmmaker. I'm not too sure he's the greatest filmmaker in the world. I don't think he has much nuance about him. Making movies is hard, so I don't want to be too critical. The fact that he got it made to begin with is kind of an achievement. I don't know if he really had a real handle on trying to get like the best out of these actors or trying to create like a cohesive storyline. Like the simple fact that one of the credences in the storytelling was that somebody had to die every 8 minutes shows what this film values more. Like it's not really about the story, it's about the kills, and it's about how imaginative the kills are, and I think that's a fair kind of comment. So from a rating perspective, I think I'm probably hovering at around 4.5 enchiladas. I think I'm about there. I don't know if I am recommending it. Like, it's not terrible, but it's not great.
If I can say two good things about this movie, the sequence with Reggie and his brother. I like that. I enjoyed that. Good energy, interesting acting. It was kind of funny. And the kill in the outhouse, I mean, that was a lot of fun. I also really enjoyed the kill when, the couple are out in the woods having sex, and he uses that bolt cutter to like gouge her eyes out. I thought that was kind of creative, actually. Outside of that, I mean, the story, blah. The murder mystery, blah. Roy, blah. No, it wasn't that interesting. It wasn't that good. And just because you beefed up the kills, the amount of kills, isn't going to redeem this movie at all. It was so boring for the most part. So I think I might actually probably go lower than you. I'm going to give this one 4 babies. 4 babies.
Nice. Nice one, man.
I can't recommend it. It's not that interesting. Skip this one.
This is definitely a skip. There are better sequels than this one. Let's just hope that Jason Lives Friday the 13th Part 6 is an improvement. We'll see what happens. We'll talk next week.
That is our next episode. And I mean, that title's just a spoiler, right? Big spoiler. And the fact that they don't even put Friday the 13th at the beginning of the title of this movie. The title is Jason Lives. Jason's coming back next week.
He's totally coming back big time.
So, guys, for more great podcasts from Golden Spiral Media, make sure you head on over to goldenspiralmedia.com/Apple. You can join us on Facebook at facebook.com/rewatchpodcast or on Twitter at rewatchpod. And also give us your rate and reviews on your podcast app of choice, especially iTunes. I mean, that really, really helps, guys. It's the easiest way you can help out the show. Just give us a good review and 4 or 5 stars. That'd be awesome. All right, Nathan, as always, thank you for joining me. Really looking forward to getting there. We're not quite at the halfway point, but we're etching towards it.
We're not far. And one thing I will say that, like, I know some of the films are not as good as others, but they're certainly fun to talk about.
All right. Well, that just leaves me to say, until next time. Oh, I think it's those damn enchiladas.
You better watch out for the snake that's going to crawl up that crapper and bite your ass.
Golden Spiral Media and the Rewatch podcast are not associated with the copyright holders of these films, and no copyright infringement is intended.
They were making love while that young boy drowned.
The use of any and all copyrighted material is solely for parody, news analysis, critique, for educational purposes, as provided in United States Code Title 17, aka Fair Use.
It's gonna take more than poking the ribs to put down this old dog.
Music provided by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com.
Cool, JJ. Parents really came through.
Copyright 2017, Golden Spiral Media.
You're a dead meat, slime bag.